initially attributed it to a number of factors. One, they said he was in an underground tunnel, which is the dumbest thing I ever heard because he died on impact.
Yes.
But a lot of other people say, he lived in a densely populated area.
So it was pollution.
Right, but that's also dumb because then everybody else who lives in Paris should have the same carbon monoxide level in their blood, and then it shouldn't be above average.
His should be a little higher, though, because he smokes cigars.
He did, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And,
But, that wouldn't put him at an unusually high for the average median. If he lives in an urban setting, Paris, so everybody there should have approximately the same level, so that's the baseline. He should be a little above, not extremely high.
Did they do blood work on anybody else in the car?
No.
Not that I ever saw. I mean, he was the driver, so he was the
Obviously,
prime
he would
candidate.
be. He would be, but it'd be interesting to see what the carbon monoxide levels were for everybody else in the car.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the problem, right? With Diana being embalmed, you lose all that blood sample. And then Dodie, I don't know if what they ever did with him. And then it would seem that they should have tested Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor.
Jones, but I don't think they ever did.
Well, these things are never brought forward,
Right.
of course. But again, these are the things that are to be focused upon. This is the thing that gets jumped on, and everybody says, "But he had." But, the other people were looked at, but those don't get reported. Sure. And, of course, then, the Operation Paget doesn't say anything about it because it was just so inconsequential. I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But let's, for a minute, talk about Henri. He'd worked for the Fayette family for over 10 years. So he had been doing private security for them. He eventually did such a good job that he got promoted to deputy head of security.
Yep.
He also, on the side, was a private pilot.
Yeah.
So he liked to fly planes. That was one of the things. He kind of had this thing of, I like to fly. I do my job, but flying is kind of what I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he did his job well, apparently. He got tipped handsomely by the super rich estate.
Yeah, no, there was...
Which helped to subsidize
I never saw anything that said that he was sloppy.
No.
It was...
he wouldn't have been promoted like that if he was.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And actually, he actually had kind of a sweet job, because these rich people would tip him really handsomely.
To just kind of hang out and make sure that paparazzi didn't...
Yeah, stuff like that.
them.
So they're tipping him 500 pounds.
Yeah.
1,000 pounds.
Yeah, very sweet deal.
Which is why when he died, they found a lot of money in his bank account.
Yeah. Like we said, he liked to fly.
Yeah.
He had 3 days prior to the accident, he had to go take, and subsequently he passed, his private pilot's physical. At the time, it wasn't the standard practice like it is now to take blood work and to do what I would call a rigorous physical examination of somebody.
Yeah.
But he still passed the test. Most of it was just question and answer. But he still passed it, and there was no question from the doctor of, well, maybe this isn't right. So that seems okay.
Yeah, and the inquest that we talked about, they did an autopsy on Henri's body, and they explicitly said that Paul's liver was found to be normal, and that, he had been taking these pills. We're going to talk about in a minute all of the different things that he had been taking, but his doctor had said that she didn't think that he had a drinking problem, but that he had the personality that he could develop one if he became depressed or anything like that. He was a bit depressed, it seems.
He was a 40-something-year-old man.
He was, and he had just gone
men in
through...
their mid-40s tend to get a bit of a drinking
Yeah,
bout.
and he had just gone through a big breakup from a long-term relationship, and sort of things that might attribute to that. So she had prescribed some things, but she said he didn't drink regularly, and when he did, it was never beyond the bounds of a normal kind of person relaxing. So one or two.
Well, but he also he's worried about it.
Well, see, this is the thing. I mean, when you talk to your doctor and your doctor says, how much do you drink, it's kind of like when a cop asks you don't tell them the truth, right?
That's true, but I
The
think-
irony is, when I signed up for my health insurance this year, I had this very same thing. Do I tell them the truth,
Nah.
or do I not?
Yeah.
Like, how much do you reveal because you don't want to be pigeonholed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I have this many beers once a week. Well, that means I get pigeonholed, or that means I've got a booze problem, or the fact that I do drink anything at all could mean that, according to this doctor. I mean, it's a really weird conundrum that it can put a guy in.
Absolutely. It can
And
put
so-
any person in. But I think the impression that I had is that he did have that concern of, I could become an alcoholic. And he knew for his job and for his hobbies, right? Being a pilot, you can't be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
For a job as a deputy security for a bunch of rich people, you can't be an alcoholic.
Sure.
So
But if
he asked the doctor to prescribe him anti-alcoholic medication.
But this is strange. I mean, to me, if I can't imagine asking something like that to be prescribed for me unless I already have a serious drinking problem.
Well, unless like it runs in your family.
I can understand this. So let's say, I don't want to go on to a long tangent here, but let's just say that we know that he had broken up from a relationship.
Yeah.
And so you find yourself for 2 weeks in a row every night going out and getting trashed and saying, wait a minute, this is not good, and I don't see any reason not to do this, but rationally I know that's a bad idea. I need to go see my doctor and get something done about that. And he did. He went to his doctor, and his doctor gave him Prozac to help with his moods.
Was it Prozac?
Yeah, it was
It was
Prozac.
Prozac, yeah.
And at the same time, she gave him the anti-alcohol medication.
Yeah. Which,
Now-
by the way, doesn't bar him from drinking alcohol. It just makes it taste a little less good.
Oh God, I can't think of what the common version of it would be in the U.S., but basically it makes it so he doesn't enjoy drinking. It's not going to make him physically ill, but it's not going to make it that fun. Well, turns out in his room in the Ritz, they found the empty packets of that medication.
Yeah, but didn't it take like a couple weeks to kick in?
Well-
it wasn't like you take it and suddenly booze tastes
That's
bad.
absolutely correct, but it indicates to me that they hadn't been in that hotel room very long. They had arrived. How long had they been at the hotel?
Well,
2 days? Di and Dodie?
Oh,
No, they
not
arrived
even-
that
just
night.
That night.
That night. Okay,
Yeah.
so
But
if
what's
there's
that? But wait, what's that got to do with him and his room, though?
well, but if in his room there are the empty packets from the pills, that means he had to have been taking them. And I don't think that means he started taking it that night. He had been taking it prior.
Yeah.
Those pills, from what I can tell in the research, they take ballpark 5 days to kick in.
Yeah.
And ballpark, after the fact, after you stop taking them, they're in your system for about 1 to 2 days. All right. We all good with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I say this stuff has to be in some way, shape, or form in his system.
And it was
And
discovered.
of
was
course,
discovered
I
in his
understand that
system,
means
right?
that means dependent on the dosage and how long the dosage has been there. But
Sure.
he's got to be taking it.
The British inquest also Operation.
Oh, before we get
Paget.
farther into this?
Well, we're talking about things that were in his system.
Oh,
right.
yes, very true.
Yeah. He had a drug called albendazole.
Albendazole? Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally know that
And
one.
it's-
No, is it albendazole?
Albendazole. That sounds more right.
You like that better? Albendazole?
Yeah, I like that way
No, I
better.
like my pronunciation
No.
longer.
Yeah.
It was unaccounted for. His doctor hadn't prescribed it to him. It was found in a hair sample of his, so they tested his hair, right, as well for his drugs, because you do that
Got it.
sometimes, right? Some
Yeah.
stuff doesn't show up in your blood necessarily. And it's a drug commonly given to homeless people in the United Kingdom, and it treats worm infestations like ringworm and things like that. No, you're laughing, but this is true, and it was found in his hair.
It's a worm medicine, which is just so weird to me.
Yeah.
That's why I'm laughing at it, because that's just so odd.
It's also odd that his doctor didn't prescribe it,
Yeah.
I think.
If you grind this stuff up and snort it, does it get you high?
I don't know. I didn't.
I doubt that.
It seems unlikely. Does it get the worms high?
Probably. The side effects there are some potentially serious side effects on this that include bone marrow suppression. That's not really that important. What is important is that liver inflammation has been reported, particularly those with liver problems.
Which we're going to talk about his liver.
We'll talk about his liver.
Or we've talked about his liver a little bit.
Yeah. And then other more common side effects include, nausea, abdominal pain, and headaches. Not really the sort of thing that would really affect your blood alcohol level, but it might affect your ability to drive a car if you're having severe headaches or abdominal cramps or anything like that. But also, super weird that they found that in his hair.
Why is he taking deworming medication?
That his doctor didn't prescribe. That's the other thing, I think, is that it seems that he had a fairly open conversation dialogue with his doctor. He was able to say, hey, I want this anti-alcoholism medication, right?
No.
So on top of that, for him to not mention, also I have ringworm, that's a little weird.
Well,
it sends up a little red flag. We're going to talk about why it sends up a little bit more of a red flag, because there are some conspiracy theories about the blood and hair and body of Henry Paul or Henri Paul that was found in the car. This is one thing that kind of feeds into that, I think.
I just had ringworm. Big deal.
But why didn't the doctor prescribe? It's not like an over-the-counter medication. It's a prescription pill.
Yeah.
So it wasn't prescribed to him by the doctor, so why didn't he go see his doctor for this?
Yeah, he went somewhere else anonymously and paid cash because he didn't want it in his medical records. That's all it is.
Which is silly, because why? Because it's ringworm.
Yeah, of course, yeah. No.
You get it from anything.
From petting the wrong dog.
Yeah.
I mean,
So anyways,
it's highly communicable. Yeah,
I thought that was worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A little strange.
Okay, well let's go back to the night of the accident.
Oh, with him drinking and stuff?
Yeah,
okay,
that. Sure. It's known that he was drinking. It's a fact. He was off of work and he was drinking. There are eyewitness accounts and receipts of eyewitnesses, as in patrons in the bar and the bartender, and the receipt from the bartender putting him in the hotel bar. Oh. So we know he was in the hotel bar.
The eyewitness
bartender.
Yeah.
And a couple of patrons. But they say that according to all of this, he had 2 Ricards. And I hope I'm pronouncing that.
I think it's Richard.
Richards? It may be.
I don't know why I keep thinking that, but I do.
Okay, well,
I don't
whichever,
know.
it doesn't matter.
I think it's Richards. I'm going to go with Richards.
2 shots of something.
Well, I looked it up. It's not. It's an anise-based alcohol. It's not super popular at the time, and it's kind of become more popular now.
Sure.
But he had 2 drinks of that, and I looked this booze up. You can buy it in it's a 70 centiliter bottle, which I think equates to like a 24-ounce bottle over the counter. Mm-hmm. So I can't see him in the bar getting a 24-ounce bottle.
Yeah, no.
So I've got to guess that what he got was a glass. So it had to be a mixed drink.
It had to.
Which, it can't be a big mixed drink, because it's a full bottle of booze that I was looking at on the internet to buy.
Also, yeah, if they're charging him for just, the shot of that, the mixer's free.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just drinking it over ice or straight up.
It to me is the equivalent of going to the bar and getting a shot of whiskey on the rocks.
But,
now,
yeah.
2 of those is not good.
Depending on the state of your stomach, really, don't forget about
exactly.
that. But also, don't forget this. I don't know if you've ever had a bar that you go to on a regular basis or not, but often it turns out in cases like that, especially I'm thinking that this bar maybe, you get what's called the bro deal, which is that you don't get charged for all the drinks that you take.
And that could be possible.
And also, by the way, let's not forget, the bartender has a strong reason to not tell the truth later on, because he doesn't want to be culpable for you driving drunk.
Right, but we're not going to go there yet. Okay, so I just want to stick to this 2 drinking. Now, his BAC indicated that he had to have 10 drinks.
A million.
10 or 12 of these freaking things.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about briefly the carbon monoxide
Yeah.
in his blood.
He was smoking cigars. Wasn't
Well,
he?
he knew he was known to smoke cigars, and evidently that night he had been smoking he'd smoked 2 cigars, which for anybody who's ever smoked a cigar, that's a lot of smoking.
They were full cigars, not cigarellos or anything.
Yeah, they're like, the
Oh
big
my
old,
God.
like, giant things. I mean, I've tried to smoke a cigar, and I think I made it like 10 minutes.
I don't,
Yeah.
that don't
And made
get you far with
a
those
half an
things.
inch of progress
were
on that
you
stupid
inhaling?
thing. Oh, no.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's, I think that made me sick. That's why I
Yeah,
stopped. But that's a lot to inhale. And this guy is inhaling two plus cigars.
Yeah.
So that to me explains the carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
I also then, I'm operating on the, let's say what we have as evidence from the bar is true. How the hell can his BAC be that high?
It can't.
Okay,
Can it?
Actually, it can.
It can if he's got no food in him. But I started rooting around in a couple of things, and I actually found some medical studies, which, believe it or not, exonerate him a little bit. Or prove that maybe the numbers aren't right. There is, from a physiological standpoint, there is an interaction in the body between alcohol and nicotine. And I'd heard this from a doctor years ago, that nicotine blocks your uptake of alcohol. Turns out there's a couple of scientists who did a study, and they took 3 control groups of rats. What they did is they injected the same amount of alcohol into all of them. And then group A got a low dose, group B got a high dose, or medium dose, and group C got the high dose of nicotine. And go figure, the group that got the high dose of nicotine had a lower blood alcohol content peak number because the nicotine was blocking some of the receptors in the body that pull in the booze. So if this guy is huffing cigars all night long, it stands to reason based on this study, and I understand this is a study, it's not concrete proof.
Yeah.
But I've seen supporting studies of this.
Right,
But,
and just anecdotal evidence. Of,
right, but
yeah.
if this guy is sucking on a cigar all night long and he's had 2 drinks or 2 shots, he shouldn't be nearly as drunk as the guy next to him who's had the exact same amount of food and day and number of shots, because the nicotine stops the uptake.
Sure.
But
Highly weird, but it turns out true.
Okay.
But let's finish with my last thing that really, really makes me question if he was total guano house drunk.
Yeah.
Okay. If you watch the footage of him in the hotel lobby and you watch him outside,
Yep.
he's standing around, he's fine, he sees Di and Dodie, he walks them outside, he holds the door, he waves to somebody
The paparazzi, it's suspicious.
suspiciously, and then he walks to the car and he opens the doors and he gets in. Nowhere in that crappy footage does he suddenly go grrr and tip over drunk.
Yeah, he doesn't stumble at all.
No.
He's very
No.
solid.
No.
Nothing about his behavior indicates that he is completely in the bag.
But there are people that can put away a lot of booze and still maintain.
But those people tend to have signs physiologically, like in their liver that we talked about.
Yeah.
That would show that, yeah, you can maintain the face, but your body is paying the price, and he doesn't seem to have had that.
Well,
Yeah.
just I mean, it takes a while to really start damaging your liver. So,
But it also takes a while to learn to operate that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, how many of you have known drunks? And for a while, the drunks, you don't know they're drunks because they're really good at operating like they're sober. And then suddenly there comes the point where they take a beer and they go, oh, blah, blah, because they're just so hose-bagged immediately that they're done.
Yeah.
And it's not a gradual progression, but physiologically, the signs are super obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So none of that showed up.
Yeah, it's a little mysterious to me. I agree that I think that it's easily explainable that he could have had the higher blood alcohol content. Maybe he drank outside the bar. He went back to his room.
Oh,
his office.
yeah.
I mean, he had a
Yeah.
bottle there.
I'm not going to disagree with that at
Yeah,
all.
although you still would expect there to be slurring, which apparently nobody noticed, and staggering, a little bit of staggering at that high of a blood alcohol content.
And
But,
for our friends who are going to jump on the conspiracy bandwagon, because I've seen this and say, well, the blood was switched out or accidentally confused with somebody else's blood in the lab.